The Protea leaves are us, the people, who freely elect our voices in Parliament. The drum calls the people of Parliament, through whom we govern together. And the sun is our country, healing our past, improving our lives, and energizing our potential. Together, our constitution, our people, our parliament, and our country are building our great South African nation. Parliament TV, channel 408 on DSTV.
Good afternoon and welcome to Parliament TV on DSTV channel 408. We are coming to you live from the Cape Town City Hall, from where we will be bringing to you the debates of the State of the Nation address, which will be taking place a little bit later at 1400 hours this afternoon. On Thursday last week, the state president delivered the State of the Nation address, where he outlined progress that has been made in implementing the 2021 State of the Nation address. And also, he reported on progress that has been made over and above, also announcing government's program of action for the year ahead. We must also bear in mind that the president's announcements are still in line with the overarching commitments of the medium-term strategic framework and the electoral mandate, keeping the country on a steady policy trajectory. All political parties that are represented in Parliament will today and tomorrow debate the President's address, and the President will reply on Thursday. I am not alone. I am with my co-presenters, Valerie and Tembinkosi.
Thank you very much, Subulelo. Good afternoon to you as well, Tembinkosi. The debate provides an opportunity for members of Parliament to ask questions, make comments, and debate on the content of the President's State of the Nation address speech over 2 days. This will be followed by the President's reply on Wednesday. As part of our lineup, we will be talking to the chairperson of chairs for both houses, Mr. Frolik and Mr. Nyambi, who are going to talk to us about the work of Parliament, specifically committees, to ensure that there is oversight on the commitments made by the President. We also will be joined by Professor Richard Calland to help us unpack the key policy areas for the year ahead.
Indeed, Valerie, we have a jam-packed show for today. Don't forget to follow us and join the conversation on our social media platforms, Instagram, YouTube, Twitter, @Parliament of RSA. Let's continue to wash our hands, wear our masks, sanitize, social distance, as the COVID-19 pandemic is not yet over. Please stay tuned.
After 2 days of grilling debates by members of Parliament, President Cyril Ramaphosa will conclude the process of the debate on the State of the Nation address with his reply on 16 February 2022 at 2 p.m. Watch the reply by the President to the debate on the State of the Nation address live across Parliament's platforms on 16 February 2022 at 2 p.m. For more information on the State of the Nation address, visit our website at www.parliament.gov.za. Follow us on social media account at Parliament of RSA. Parliament, following up on our commitments to the people, making your future work better.
Welcome back. You are still watching Parliament TV on DSTV channel 408. And this is a build-up to the 2-day of debates following the President's State of the Nation address on last week, Thursday. Sibulele, last week the President spoke extensively on a number of issues.
Yes.
One of them, which I'm sure the community of the Pondoland, Emambondweni, Eastern Cape, and some parts of KwaZulu-Natal have welcomed, was the announcement of the industrialization of cannabis, where the President indicated that government is in the process of ensuring the industrialization of cannabis, because I'm sure government has now identified that actually a number of job opportunities can be created through the industrialization of cannabis instead of keeping it illegal, you know, because rightfully so, we are aware that, especially in the Pondoland, that the communities there, that's their source of income. You know, because understanding Yam is where exactly that thing is grown. You know, the cannabis is grown. Obviously, it's in down around South Africa, around the country, as Ikulisayo, but it's more known to be grown Mampondwe. So, yeah.
Yeah, indeed. I know one of the communities that actually grows a lot of cannabis is outside Colenso. It's a place called Winen. And also Mbizane also forms a part of the communities that actually grow cannabis. So when the president announced that it's actually going to be industrialized, means that the medicinal impact that the cannabis has on citizens, it will actually now become a reality, because buying it for medicinal purposes as well, it proved to be very expensive, and most people could not access it. And one of the things that it's also has been said that it's quite good at, it's actually to deal with cancer. So people who suffer from cancer, who've got cancer, they actually can benefit once it become industrialized, because it means that more people are going to have access to it. I think indeed you could see on the tweets and the social media how the citizens of South Africa, especially those who are growers of cannabis, were welcoming the news.
And it is similarly also then worth giving recognition to the first member that tabled a private member's bill on the use of cannabis for medical purposes, which was Honorable Ambrosini. May his soul rest in peace. So I'm sure wherever he is, he must be smiling down on us to see that we are indeed following up on what he left behind as part of legislation.
Indeed, it's also important to bear in mind that as the president talks about all these new announcements or economic activities, that this is all in line with the Economic Reconstruction and Recovery Plan, and it's all about creating a platform or an environment that is conducive to advance and accelerate inclusive economic growth. And at the heart of it, it is really about creating job opportunities and using and analyzing the landscape, the economic landscape, and looking at what is possible, what is the economic potential of each province, each district, and each locality, and to be able to use what is readily available in terms of opportunities, economic opportunities, and turn that into scalable opportunities so that more people should be able to benefit from the growth of such projects, such as the cannabis industrialization project. So indeed, when we look at this, I mean, indeed, it speaks to an expansion of opportunities. It really does speak to ensuring that, making sure that we tap into the economic potential that is readily available, instead of going out to go and come with new ideas that are very often, they are not aligned to the African landscape or to the local landscape. So this is very progressive indeed, and it really is about ensuring that we allow our people to grow within the landscape that is familiar to them. And as we know, you've both indicated rightfully that there's so many areas, quite a number of areas, including the Eastern Cape as well, where we know cannabis is being grown, but now there is an opportunity to do so legally, you know, and reap the economic benefits and plow back into our communities as well.
And I think that the Rasta community has also received those news very well, because they had been, in the past years, they have been coming to Parliament, marching to Parliament to come and raise the issue of legalization or industrialization of cannabis. I'm sure they have received those news well. And the other thing, Sis Valerie, that was of interest to me was the president making it very clear, or emphasizing that it was unacceptable. The delays on digital migration were unacceptable, and they should not have occurred. We remember last year when he delivered the State of the Nation address, he had indicated that migration will be completed by March 2022, which is March this year. And he emphasized it again last week when he delivered the State of the Nation address, that we are still in line with that deadline. He indicated that a number of provinces have already switched from analog transmission to digital, but there are still those areas that have not fully migrated. So we wait because I believe that with that switch over, that will also come with a lot of job opportunities, because you also mentioned that within 3 weeks, ICASA is the Independent Communications Authority of South Africa that regulates the ICT sector, will commence also with the auctioning of high demand radio frequency spectrum, which will then enable a wider range of or new entrants to enter the telecommunications space, which will also enable the expansion of broadband infrastructure. So if that program can also be finally completed, I know that it's been years. If I remember well, it was our first deadline was somewhere around 2008, and we are now 14 years later, and there is hope that we will meet the deadline, because we need to meet it so that we can then open up space so that new entrants can also come in the telecommunication space.
Absolutely.
And that will come with job opportunities.
Absolutely. Doesn't that also then speak to the important oversight role that Parliament is supposed to play? And especially, we spoke about this last year as well, immediately after the President delivered his State of the Nation address. So from an oversight perspective, it becomes even more critical now, given the current unemployment rate in the country, given that young people, women are mostly affected, disproportionately affected by the impact of the COVID-19 pandemic. So every project that has the capacity to create jobs, there must be systems put in place to ensure that any deadline that is put in place, it is actually adhered to and delivered.
I think speaking also about the deadlines and also the business opportunities, and also having communities being recognized, especially with the cannabis and other emerging businesses, all of this does not actually go alone, but you realize that if the road system and the rail system is not in order, communities will be stuck with all this wealth within their communities. So it becomes quite imperative that when government gives communities these opportunities, is the infrastructure in order to make sure that they are supported. So it was pleasing to hear the President's speech to say that the economic recovery plan is really in line also with what he said in the 2021 State of the Nation address. It's kind of sustainable. It's a follow-up. It's not only the delivery of new plans for 2022, but we see consistency, whether they are failures or whether they are successes. But most importantly, citizens have wealth in their provinces, but how then do they become part of the economic world, living from Imbizane or from that mama who lives in the rural area to go and sell her products into the world market, which is mostly in the cities. So I think what is critical is that we start with putting the infrastructure together to ensure that people in the rural areas or wherever the economy can be grown, they are able to access business markets.
Doesn't that then speak to the importance of infrastructure development? And the President spoke quite clearly also in his 2021 State of the Nation address, and made further commitments around infrastructure development throughout the year 2022 as a mechanism for public employment. That's employment that will be coming from government. And of course, as we know, the President also indicated that within this broad process, while he has announced all of these plans and the vision for the country, which is still in line with the medium-term strategic framework, it's not for the President, it's not only for government to implement this plan, it is for all of the partners, the social partners, the economic, the business community, civil society organizations, and all those who have a role to play to ensure that this plan becomes implementable.
And so, but talking about that, I think the President has mentioned a number of times in his speech the importance of social cohesion. Yes. You know, because even if you read to his speech, you'll notice that but when he's talking to speech, you'll notice that the president every now and again refers back to the social cohesion, because he identifies the importance of working together between government, labor, business, as well as communities. But Sylvia has spoken a lot about on the economic reconstruction and recovery process. Let's hear what the president had to say in that regard when he was delivering the State of the Nation address last Thursday.
We have given ourselves 100 days to finalize what I call a comprehensive social compact to grow our economy, to create jobs, and to combat hunger. This work will build on the foundation of the Economic Reconstruction and Recovery Plan, which we adopted, which remains our common program to rebuild the economy. We remain focused on the priorities we identified in the State of the Nation last year, they being overcoming the COVID-19 pandemic, a massive rollout of infrastructure, a substantial increase in local production, and employment stimulus to create jobs and support livelihoods, and the rapid expansion of our energy generation capacity. To be effective, this social compact needs to include every South African and every part of our society. In the end, we must all be imbued with the understanding that no one must be left behind.
Viewers at home, we are coming live to you from the City Hall. As we continue with this debate, Mgosi, just before we went out for that clip, we ended up on the note as to how critical it is to have social collaboration, social cohesion within all the structures. And then it brings us to the fact that being here in the City Hall, starting from us as Parliament being here, it speaks of collaboration. How Parliament and the Cape Town City Hall collaborated to ensure that the State of the Nation address becomes a success. Going back now to our communities, the President is also calling on all of us South Africans to say, let's come together, the labor businesses, the private sectors, NGOs, even us as citizens, let us come together to ensure that all these priorities that he has named, they become a reality. And also to add on that, you could see how he supports the local businesses. His shoes were received from Peter Maritzburg. His suit was also received from one of the companies in Cape Town to promote or to even emphasize the point of South Africa has the ability. South Africa is capable of producing its own products.
Of course, the country is definitely capable of doing that. And as you mentioned, that the president is emphasizing the point of the issue of working together. Because even if you look at the priorities that the president, the 5 priorities that the president was speaking on, which is the first one, overcoming the COVID-19 pandemic. Government cannot do it alone. Citizens cannot do it alone. It is a collaborated effort. We all need to play our role, in order to overcome COVID-19 pandemic. Not just that, we all need, I think what the president, Sis Valerie, was really emphasizing, the need to work together. Because I believe that there is this kind of like a laid back or this sitting back of, in particular, the ordinary citizens, and expect that the government will just deliver things in the silver platter. But the President has emphasized now that we need to have a social cohesion, we need to work together, and there's nothing that we can achieve if we are working we're not working together. So, yeah.
Indeed, when we also reflect on the importance of state capacity, that's also a critical enabler to enable to make it possible for these plans to be implemented. So over and above the issue of the social compact itself, which the President always emphasizes as a key enabler that, as you've rightfully pointed out, it is about bringing together all sectors of society to ensure that everybody plays their part from within their space, their ambit of influence, to ensure that the program of action, that government's program of action becomes implementable. And of course, that also critically, the president also made reference to the importance of the private sector, big business coming on board to align themselves to the plans, to government's developmental plans. And without the participation of big business, particularly when we zone in on the issue of job creation and growing the economy, it is so important that we need investment. We need big business to come on board, to play their part as well, because they're also part of this country. So it makes sense for them to be aligned. But I do think that the president has really done well in terms of creating these platforms to seek investment. And we have seen how the president has raised quite a huge amount of money, and there is also a commitment. In fact, the intention and the objective really is to raise about 1.2 trillion within this 5-year MTSF period. And we have seen that the president has really moved in the right direction. He is making all the right moves, but we also have to look at that given the current challenges within the broader context of the COVID-19 pandemic and how it has impacted the economy, how it has caused economic stagnation, and a lot of people have lost jobs. It becomes even more critical now, more than ever, that the social compact that is required, because you cannot do it without a social compact. It's not just about the president making announcements. It is about everyone seeing themselves, those who are able to make a contribution towards the implementation of the plan. They must step forward, play their part, make their contribution, so that we can be able to take this country forward.
And I also see the response that the president also gave on the issue of the lady that was actually taken by the Metropolis and put in the van because she could not have a permit to sell her products. Right. So it means that in terms of developing our economy, we have a president or the government that actually listens, because that alone, during that time of COVID, you imagine what was on the table for that lady being put in the van, her family watching out just because she wanted to have something on the table. Meaning now that the review of the Business Act that is currently in operation, we the citizens and those who want to, or emerging young businesses or are coming up with starters, they are going to have an opportunity now to go into the market, to access the market in a way that does not have a lot of red tape. On the red tape that actually makes it difficult to access the market, we know that the president has identified a red tape team that is going to look at the existing legislation and other legislations that prohibit or make it difficult or are barriers in order for citizens to access. So it is, I think it was something positive as well that came out of the speech. But on the other hand, we also applaud the citizens who took also the social relief grant of 350 rands a month. I know there's a young man who opened an ice cream shop. He saved for a couple of months, and then he took that 350 rand, growed it, and then he opened that ice cream business. Imagine if he had proper funding, proper access into starting his businesses. So we need to applaud those people, who had visions and then were able to go out and then start businesses. Yeah.
Absolutely. Isn't that what we need? We need a paradigm shift. That there's also the sense that government is going to put food on the table all the time, indefinitely. There is a need also for all our social partners to conscientize our citizenry to make sure that they also make innovative use of the resources that are at their disposal, so that they're able to also do what this young man has done, which is to make sure that he creates a long-term living for himself. With that said, let's quickly go to this short insert. We'll be back.
After 2 days of grilling debates by members of parliament, President Cyril Ramaphosa will conclude the process of the debate on the State of the Nation address with his reply on 16 February 2022 at 2 p.m. Watch the reply by the President to the debate on the State of the Nation address live across Parliament's platforms on 16 February 2022 at 2 p.m. For more information on the State of the Nation address, visit our website at www.parliament.gov.za. Follow us on social media account at Parliament of RSA. Parliament, following up on our commitments to the people, making your future work better.
We are working together to revitalize our economy and end the inequality and injustice that impedes our progress as a nation. We are standing together against corruption and to ensure that those who are responsible for state capture will be punished for their crimes. We are rebuilding the state and restoring trust and pride in our public institutions. If there is one thing we all agree on, it is that the present situation that we are in now, of deep poverty, unemployment and inequality, is unacceptable and unsustainable. There is agreement amongst a broad and diverse range of South Africans that fundamental change and fundamental reforms are needed to revive economic growth in our country. There is a need both to address the immediate crisis and to create conditions for long-lasting stability and development. To achieve this, South Africa needs a new consensus, a consensus that is born out of a common understanding of our current challenging situation and a recognition of the need to address the challenges of unemployment, poverty, and inequality. This should be a new consensus which recognizes that the state must create an environment in which the private sector can invest and unleash the dynamism of our economy. But equally, it is also an environment in which South Africans can live a better life and unleash the energy of their capabilities. This should also be a new consensus which embraces our shared responsibility to one another as South Africans and acknowledges that we are all in this together. And together we must find solutions that will take our nation forward.
Parliament consists of two houses, namely the National Assembly and the National Council of Provinces. The two houses conduct their work in plenary sessions and committee meetings. We are now joined by the National Council of Provinces House Chairperson, responsible for committees, Mr. Nyambi. Mr. Nyambi, good morning and thank you very much for joining us at Parliament TV.
Morning to you, my brother, and morning to the viewers at home.
Thank you, sir. If you could just share with our viewers at home the mandate of the office of the House Chairperson in the National Council of Provinces.
The mandate of the House Chairperson in the National Council of Provinces mainly is to deal with committees, looking at oversight and IGR, which is intergovernmental relations. From time to time, different select committees in the National Council of Provinces, if there's anything that they have to do, whether it's about their meetings or they have to go and do oversight, they will make an application to their office and will assess in relation to the program of that respective select committee and advise accordingly whether approved or not approved.
And if you could just explain to us now, these committees of the NCOP, how are they structured, and to what extent do they assist the NCOP in performing its oversight role?
As you'll understand that in the National Council of Provinces, we have got 54 permanent members. It's 90 if you consider the special delegates. So they are clustered to the select committees, meaning you have a number of departments that will have one chairperson in charge of. And in one committee, you'll have two select committee chairs in one committee. So when they are planning, they will dedicate Wednesday for another select committee, and then, of course, Tuesday will be for another chairperson because of the membership. And as you know, that we are representing the interest of provinces. But every time we'll make sure that all these provinces that we have in South Africa are represented in all the select committees so that the interest of each province will be attended by all select committees of the National Council of Provinces.
Now, in March 2020, that's when the national state of disaster was announced by the president, and Parliament had also to close its offices, and staff and the members of Parliament then started working from home, through virtual platforms.
Yes.
Your assessment, how has that benefited the institution, or what were the challenges that you encountered from working in that, from using virtual platforms to conduct your work, taking into consideration that we are still on level 1 of lockdown, and Parliament is still working virtually?
No, there are good lessons to be learned. Of course, there were some number of challenges when we started, serious glitches. As you understand, some other members of the NCOP are coming from serious rural areas where you'll have a challenge of connectivity. So that created problems. But once we have mastered that, then others were forced to drive to a place where they will have a proper connection so that they can be able to connect. But I must commend the staff of Parliament for the good job that they've done, because they have made us to realize that it's doable. And if I do my own assessment, I can gladly tell you that we have done extremely well. We have even surpassed my own expectations, because not even a single committee that had its own application and then it will end up not sitting because it's a virtual platform. And we have covered much ground. Those are good lessons that we're taking from the pandemic, COVID-19, that is facing the country and the world. And committees have done extremely well. And the departments were able to come in account. Different ministers from time to time, they will have sessions. Different MECs in almost all the provinces will be part of those briefing sessions, making sure that they connect to the virtual platform, trying to make sure that we do justice in making sure that we're making them to account in the National Council of Provinces. So those were the good lessons. But of course, working with the Department of Communication is to attend areas that are still have got a serious challenge when it comes to getting the connection to the network that we have in the country. And it was good for us to have that taste so that we come to a reality of what our people are facing on a daily basis.
I think I'm glad you mentioned that, because it's something that we spoke with together with my colleagues earlier, the issue of the auctioning of the high demand radio frequency spectrum, which will also make it easier for other companies to come into the market for broadband infrastructure, for the expansion of broadband infrastructure, so that those members who are located within the rural area are able to enjoy attending the meetings of Parliament at home, other than sometimes driving away to look for a network. Now, going back there, we know there's one program of the National Council of Provinces that has been impacted badly, with his taking Parliament to the people.
Yes.
The President has announced that there are plans that government is working on to end the national state of disaster. Are we likely to see that program resuming again? And how has it been? Because, you know, this is where Parliament reports to the people and also receives feedback from the people, but that has not happened. What are the plans for the year and the future?
Starting with the one of the spectrum, as we have correctly explained it, I'm happy because even the president in his State of the Nation address has addressed that aspect, meaning it's something that it's going to go a long way to assist us as a country. And of course, the flagship program, Taking Parliament to the People, it's something that already the research unit is working on making sure that they are on the ground getting much more information so that once we kickstart the proper preparations, as it has been announced by the president, that they are dealing with the issue of regulations to make sure that the country it's in full swing, because we can't continue like this. It has affected the economy. It has affected how we do things, but we can't fold our arms. We want to maximize out of that benefit. So I can confirm that we are looking forward to taking Parliament to the people so that we can have the people that we are representing here in this house called the National Council of Provinces, and of course having members of cabinet joining us. And then the last day, of course, we'll always have the president or deputy president to address and dealing with the challenges. And sometimes we have challenges that will be addressed immediately, and we'll have those that will need some long-term plan. So we're looking forward to that program and that day when president is going to make that decision for the country.
Now we have Section 100 and Section 139 of the Constitution, which permits for intervention by national government to provincial governments and by provincial governments to the municipal sphere. And you'd remember that there has been a number of interventions that have been done in that regard, one being in Northwest,
Yes.
which from 2018 there's been intervention in about 13 municipalities, subject to correction.
Yes.
How far is the Ncop with those interventions, and if we can then just indicate whether there has been any results of such interventions?
No, there have been some serious results, serious improvement. But of course, we'll understand that last year we had the elections, meaning we have got new councillors coming in. But of course, so it was a continuation in terms of administration. But there were some good lessons learned. And we even made an exception, because when we were doing approval, the select committee of COGTA went to Northwest to make sure that they are doing a proper interaction with all the relevant stakeholders. But one thing for sure that we have learned is that there are some serious challenges when it comes to local government. You have those that are still owing some millions, owing ISCOM, so they will struggle. When you check their revenue, it's a serious problem. But as a National Council of Provinces, we have decided that we are going to be engaging the Minister of Finance, the Minister of COGTA, and all the MECs coming from different provinces in addressing challenges facing local government. And of course, we're not going to be leaving out SALGA, as SALGA is an important stakeholder, and you'll understand that the National Council of Provinces is the only house in the country where you have SALGA having a representation. And once we have engaged all of them and we're coming to one room so that we can come with lasting solutions, we are of the view that with the lessons that we have learned for a number of years, we can be in a position to assist local government in our country.
And talking about SALGA, they've raised concerns regarding the intervention at Mfuleni local municipality, which has been there since 2018. Have you addressed their concerns?
We have tried, but we haven't to get to a stage where we can say now we're done with the problems. You'll remember it was out of our intervention as the National Council of Provinces that forced the Deputy President of the country to be leading a team going there. And when the Deputy President was there, he ended up inviting the South African National Defence Force there, because they have that unit that can be able to assist to deal with the infrastructure. They have done some work there, but we are not at the stage where we can say all of us are happy. There's still a long way to go, and there's still some serious room for improvement. That is why we are of the view that let's have a holistic approach. Of course, we are using the Northwest and the Mfuleni as an example of how things not to be done and what is to be done when you have to have all the relevant stakeholders getting in. But we are still of the view that if we can have the Minister, SALGA, the Deputy President, and of course, even the president on Thursday evening, when he was delivering the State of the Nation address, he explained the role that can be played by the South African National Defence Force in dealing with the challenges that we are facing on the ground. And it's an issue that already we have started with the Deputy President when we went to Mfuleni, and we realized that the magnitude of the problem was more than what was at face value. But we are getting there, but it's still a long way to go.
And we must indeed commend the work that is done by the South African National Defence Force in assisting government, especially in the building of those bridges in our rural communities. Now, lastly on this intervention part is the city of Tshwane. You know, in 2020, the Gauteng provincial government recommended a dissolution of the city of Tshwane Metro, which was approved by the Ncop. However, the court then ruled that that dissolution as unlawful. What were the lessons learned there?
No, it was a good thing for what was done by the National Council of Provinces. And of course, relying on the legal unit providing that legal assistance. And we're convinced that what we're doing is the right thing and is something that can assist the municipality. But of course, we are fortunate in the country because we still have a judiciary that will come in if people are aggrieved and they are not happy about something. And we decided as the National Council of Provinces, after the pronouncement by the High Court setting aside the dissolution, that it's something that is unlawful. And out of that, we have learned some lessons, that advice that will be getting right from the institution. Sometimes it will be good out of that to even have some external legal assistance so that we beef up what we have as an institution, so that from time to time when our decision is taken to court, we are not found wanting. But it's a good lesson from to buy the decision that has been taken.
And beginning of this month, the Ncop held a workshop on cooperative governance and intergovernment relations, where national government, provincial, local, academics, experts were invited to partake, and also the activists were invited to partake in the workshop. What lessons have you learned from that workshop, and how do you plan to take those lessons forward?
The good thing about that workshop is that if we decide to have external people to come in and do their assessment, their views about what we're doing as a National Council of Provinces, is that we start to realize where we have to up our game. And part of what we have learned is that there's a critical role that we can play as the National Council of Provinces, because that's the only house where you even have a representation of SALGA. That's the house where you have even the voice of these different provinces. That's the house where you call the executive. That's the house where the president is coming. So why can't we maximize the benefit of having all these relevant people? And out of the information sharing session in that workshop, we've realized that there are some room for improvement for us as members of the National Council of Provinces. That is why from time to time we have decided to make it a matter of must that when we're starting a year, it's always a good thing to have external people coming in, to have relevant stakeholders coming in, to have former members sharing some experiences. And that is always assisting us to up our game. And of course, to have our closed session when we are meeting as permanent delegates to say where we went wrong in the past, what are the lessons learned as we have correctly raised it. And they have assisted us. I can assure you that these 2022 come next year, and with the manner in which we'll be doing things will be totally different, because we are, all of us, irrespective of political affiliation, irrespective of a province, agreeing about three things: that we have got a challenge of poverty, we've got a challenge of unemployment, we've got a challenge of inequality. We might be differing in terms of approach. So, but that workshop has assisted us to address the critical challenge that is facing the country as the National Council of Provinces.
It is my understanding that, as per the tradition of the National Council of Provinces, immediately after the budget speech, the Ncop will start, the committees will then begin to go on their strategic planning sessions. What are the issues or what would be your focus areas or those committees' focus areas which emanated from the President's address?
It's three things. The first one, it's the issue of the unemployment. The second one is the infrastructure, how they will be dealing with the issue of infrastructure. The third one, it's how they will be dealing with the challenge facing our economy as South Africa. So as the National Council of Provinces, you might have seen our program. All of us, we plan that after SONA and the budget, all of us were going to our respective provinces so that we can get our SOPA, where different premiers will be presenting their own provincial address so that they can assist what we have as SONA and the budget of departments. And when we go at committee level, we're trying to come with a program that will make sure that we do effective oversight in all these departments, doing oversight in all what has been presented by President on SONA. When they are saying there will be a role that will be played by the South African National Defence Force, what is that role? So that from time to time, whether it's oral question, we'll be writing to the President to say, you said this, but how far have you gone about this thing? Whether you talk of issue of infrastructure, we'll be making that oversight. Whether you talk of the issue of the economy, we'll be doing that oversight. So we are going to our own session so that we come with a clear time frame programs that will assist us so that we are able to be equal to the task of making them to account as they have made the commitments, different departments, and of course, informed by what was said by President on Thursday.
And in closing, since the President has mentioned that government is working on ways to end the national state of disaster, are we likely, or when are we likely to see the members of the Ncop and the officials of Parliament returning full-time to the office?
I can confirm that in this SONA, it's only the National Assembly because of their numbers. All members of the Ncop are back in SONA. Already they are here. But of course, we are waiting for the President so that they can be back even in their offices, so that we can make sure that even committees, there is not an arrangement of a hybrid. It's an issue of them physically coming to Parliament. So that is why we can't wait for President to assist us in terms of dealing with this issue of regulations, so that we can see members that we haven't seen for some time. But as the National Council of Provinces, you know our numbers, they are manageable, and we are back in action, despite what we have had as a challenge because of the fire that happened in Parliament, and now we're here in this Cape Town City Hall for the first time since the dawn of democracy in our country. But Ncop members, any member that you are not seeing here, it's somebody that is not well, but not because of the numbers, because all of the National Council Provinces members are back in full force in action, and we are looking forward to the President dealing with the regulations so that we can have even committees doing what is happening in SONA.
Mr. Nyambi, I must thank you very much for always making time to talk to us at Parliament TV. It's really much appreciated.
The pleasure, it's mine. Thanks, my brother.
Viewers at home, that was Mr. Nyambi, the House Chairperson in the National Council of Provinces, and we will be right back.
After 2 days of grilling debates by members of Parliament, President Cyril Ramaphosa will conclude the process of the debate on the State of the Nation address with his reply on 16 February 2022 at 2 p.m. Watch the reply by the President to the debate on the State of the Nation address live across Parliament's platforms on 16 February 2022 at 2 p.m. For more information on the State of the Nation address, visit our website at www.parliament.gov.za. Follow us on social media account at Parliament of RSA. Parliament, following up on our commitments to the people, making your future work better.
South Africa, COVID-19 is still with us. South Africa and the world continue to experience infections and deaths, with many families losing their loved ones and in some instances, their livelihoods through this pandemic. While the government has opened various sectors of the economy to arrest the collapse of the economy and is rolling out the robust national vaccination program, the importance of remaining vigilant and never letting our guard down cannot be overemphasized. We must all remain steadfast in strictly observing all regulations and health protocols. Once the guard is lowered and we ignore these important life-saving protocols and regulations, our rate of infections will skyrocket, lives and livelihoods will be destroyed, and our socio-economic rebuilding and restoration program will suffer immensely. Let's work together, let's hold hands and unite even better than before against this invisible enemy. As united people of this nation, let's work together, let's hold hands and unite even better than before against this invisible enemy. As united people of this nation, we have overcome most vicious and destructive adversaries before. Working together, we can overcome these too. Let's avoid huge gatherings where we can, wear our masks, wash hands all the time, and maintain social distancing. Parliament, following up on our commitments to the people, making your future work better.
Welcome back. You are still watching Parliament TV on DSTV channel 408. This is a build-up to the debate that is scheduled for this afternoon and tomorrow afternoon following the President's address of this address to the nation last week, Thursday. Sibu, I just spoke to Mr. Nyambi now on the various issues that impact on the work of the National Council of Provinces. And one of the things that he's just mentioned in closing was that the NCOP members are almost all of them back at work, with the exception, of course, of those members who are not well. And the staff as well of the NCOP, the majority is back. The work of the NCOP is continuing, even with the fire that devastated the part of the NA, of Parliament, which of course did not affect the NCOP, but the National Assembly and the National and the old Assembly building. How, I know you are also in that NCOP. Are you back in office?
Well, I think it is important to just start by emphasizing, I want to particularly zone in on the issue of business continuity. The NCOP has indeed been able to function, even from the beginning of the pandemic, even when the pandemic hit in 2020, when the country was under hard lockdown. The NCOP swiftly, obviously under the leadership administratively of the acting secretary to Parliament, to put systems in place. Our ICT model is also in place, which made it very easy to transition to either a hybrid system or a fully virtual platform for convening the NCOP Select Committee meetings, as well as the plenaries and debates at the House. The NCOP has been 100%.
I asked you that because I wanted to confirm what Mr. Nyambi has said to me was actually what is happening in the NCOP.
No, everyone is at work, whether we are physically here at the city, at the Cape Town City Hall, or working virtually. There's also a view that a lot of people have been much more productive working from home. But in terms of business continuity, not only of the NCOP, but equally so for the National Assembly, even this fire has not impacted on the ability of the institution to still continue to fulfill its constitutional mandate. Members have been attending committee meetings, they have been doing their oversight. Obviously the staff members as well have also been able to continue their work, because many of them are still, while they are working remotely, because of the fact that the work is content-based, for many of those who are able to work from home, they are working from home. But essentially, bottom line is that Parliament is 100% fully functional.
And I can tell you now that the National Assembly has also been as fully functional since the day that announcement was made. We have been hard at work. Number of committees have been on oversight since I think the gas amendment bill, the committee is still out there on the public consultations. We've seen public hearings on the Section 25 because part of those public hearings happened even during this period of COVID-19. But now back to the main business, Sisvi, the President has announced that it will take about 100 days to finalize a comprehensive social impact to grow the economy, to create jobs, and to fight poverty. You know, we're waiting to see that social compact, and we are already on the countdown. If you count from Thursday, we are now today on our 4th day, so which basically means there's now 96 days remaining.
Indeed, Tim Gosi, because if you recall, last year, he actually did say that they've got about 100 days to start working on this program. So there are certain things that still need to be maybe tie the loose ends there and there to ensure that when it becomes implementable, or well, maybe when it cascades to the government departments and other active sectors also within this plan, everything goes according to plan. Because as we said earlier on, it's the issue that there's continuity, there is sustainability in what he delivered next year. So it's no longer an issue of having new programs in place, but we are seeing progress in what was indicated last year. Whether whoever is affected sees progress or maybe they see a slow pace of doing things will be seen in the delivery of the plan when 100 days has been completed.
But in fact, the 100 days really speaks to the President emphasizing the need for the social compact and partnership. And then again, that also speaks to the importance of ensuring that you bring all social and economic partners on board, obviously as led by the President, to get all of the sectors to play their part, to play their role, so that we can be able to see an acceleration in relation to the implementation of the priorities. And as you rightfully point out, the plans that are announced by the President, what he announced on the 10th of February, last week, Thursday, is still in line with what was announced in 2021. Those priorities that he announced, he emphasized indeed that it's a continuation because we, from a policy perspective, we're still on the same trajectory. And that really is about ensuring that government creates a conducive environment for the economy to grow, bring the business partners on board, big business on board, draw in foreign direct investment or local investment as well, bring about relief when it comes to issues of poverty and hunger, but create unemployment and take the country forward and address the issues of gender-based violence, which is also an issue, you know, that has been highlighted, as well as we know that in the last SONA, in fact it was in the 2021 SONA, we know that we observed in 2020 that a lot of women fell victim to acts of violence and femicide. So that is also a critical priority that has been highlighted. But the President has given a broad overview of all the key kind of policy focus areas that will must give impetus to what we are doing as a country. And that really is about ensuring that, you know, we take the country forward, that we create jobs for the unemployed, for the young people and women who are most disproportionately impacted upon by the COVID-19 pandemic.
I think also one of the things that I just want to connect what we've just alluded to in terms of the State President address as to what the chairperson, the House chairperson from the NCOP alluded to. I like the choice of words when he said effective oversight. It's just no longer just oversight, but effective, because it's possible there is a recognition in that the oversight that has been played over the years has not been as effective. Looking at the commission of the state capture report, the two reports do not paint a good picture as to in terms of the oversight. So that choice of words, it further also agrees with what the deputy chairperson of the NCOP said when she was with us in the studio on the very same day when the President was about to deliver the State of the Nation address. She spoke about quality oversight. So there is a trend, or there is maybe an observation that maybe somehow Parliament is lacking there are certain mechanisms that needs to be in place to ensure that when they conduct oversight, it becomes effective.
and the reception rooms that are available to cater for all the different categories of guests that were arriving is suitable. It is absolutely majestic to have seen the president taking the national salute just below the statue of former President Nelson Mandela, who was released from prison and after 27 years and came to the City Hall to address the masses of the people.
Mr. Frolick, Parliament is entering its third year now under the level 1 COVID-19. Can you kindly share with us what are the successes or unsuccesses of the National Assembly when it comes to using the new way of working, which is the virtual platforms versus mostly where you interact on a daily basis before COVID?
Well, the first, I think, important change that we must notice is that I used to be part of committees that meet physically in the morning from 8 a.m. already onwards. And where we live in the parliamentary villages, it is quite an effort to get to Parliament that early in the morning. It means at times some members must leave by 6 to be at Parliament by 8 o'clock. So those meetings taking place virtually now, and I refer to meetings like the National Assembly Programming Committee, as well as a number of other meetings. It gives you that space not to sit for 2 hours in traffic to meet at 8 o'clock or at 8:30. So that is a very positive change, a very positive development. I also think that the investment that was done by Parliament in ICT over the years have now paid off, because all members are equipped with the necessary ICT tools. So there was no need to lay out an additional funding amount to fund for devices of members. Members had their laptops, they had their smartphones, they had their iPads, so they were ready. The only challenge that we had, of course, was poor connectivity in certain parts of the country, especially members in rural areas, and also the impact of load shedding on the bandwidth where members are residing. We tried to overcome that, but ultimately the data one was easy to sort out. You just increase the data for members and you put them into contracts that gives them limitless access to data. But the one of load shedding is outside our control. We also found that the hybrid way of working for sittings of the National Assembly proved very, very effective. And there's a lot of lessons that we have learned from that. However, sometimes you still find on the odd occasion members forgetting to mute their mics or to switch off their video screens. And that led to some disruptions, but generally speaking, it worked well. As far as committees are concerned, committees managed to function. In fact, we did not have any time lost due to the restrictions for the national disaster that's in place that impacted on committees. And as soon as the president adjusted the levels of the restrictions, committees could once again go out, do their oversight work. And they also had the ability that wherever they are in the country, they could log into sittings of the National Assembly or sittings of the National Council of Provinces. So it gave us greater flexibility in terms of our planning. But I must add that it is not a replacement for in-person discussions. There are certain matters that can be dealt with on a virtual network, and there are other matters that preferably should be dealt with in person at your place of work. You also found that the response from support staff was mixed. At times you look for support staff and they're not available. That became a bit of a challenge. You look for urgent documents in the committee section or elsewhere, and you find that the people who are supposed to do it is not readily available. So the work culture must also change. And there must be a realization from everyone involved in Parliament that working from home doesn't mean you mustn't work. In fact, you are at the office. The only difference is you're sitting at home or elsewhere. And you must be available from the morning that you usually start, whether it's 8 or 8:30 until 4 in the afternoon.
Honorable Frederick, you just highlighted on the fact that the virtual platforms cannot replace the human interaction. With now the devastating fire that engulfed the National Assembly, what is going to happen? Because I believe that Parliament has been supported to use this venue until the 16th. Thereafter, how is the National Assembly portfolio committees and members of the National Assembly going to proceed going forward?
There are a few committee rooms in the National Assembly, like E249, and also smaller committee rooms on the 4th and 5th floor that is not usable. It has been destroyed. However, the other committee rooms on the precinct of Parliament are still available. So we'll have fewer committee rooms, and that is where the hybrid system kicks in beautifully, or virtual system kicks in. Because with a virtual meeting, you don't need committee rooms. You can sit and you log in and you can have your meeting. But where there's a need, and we've already allowed it to happen, where certain committees who want to have in-person meetings will have their meetings, there is committee space available. It may not be the same number of rooms that was previously available, but there is space for in-person meetings to take place.
For the sitting of the National Assembly for all the political parties, is there an alternative venue that Parliament is looking at?
Well, at the moment, the option that has been given to us and that we will use is for the National Assembly to sit in the group chamber. The number of members of Parliament that will be allowed into the group chamber is approximately 70, and those seats will be proportionally allocated to the different political parties. The discussion, however, must start soon as to what's going to happen when we have joint sittings that take place. What is going to happen within the next year or two in the interim while the National Assembly is not usable. And those are the discussions that we must have sooner rather than later. I know there is a team that's looking at certain options, but they haven't reported back to us yet. I'm sure that once we've concluded the State of the Nation address, we'll shift our focus to that.
All right. Mr. Frolik, back now to your mandate as the House chairpersons for committees. Last year, the Portfolio Committee on Social Development held its first children's oral submission on the Children's Amendment Bill. I remember last year we engaged on this, whether Parliament is looking into starting to bring in the children as well in matters of lawmaking processes. As the House chairperson, do you foresee other committees actually starting to bring in children to have a say on issues or bills that affect them?
It all depends, and we must also be aware that there are certain legal protection and restrictions that are in place when interacting with underage children. We take that into account, and I'm quite sure that as matters will arise that affect and impact directly on children, that option will be looked at. But we are also very mindful that minors are protected by law. You can't even take a photo of a minor and distribute it without the express permission of the parent. And that is to protect them as well. So we take those legal prescripts into account. And as far as possible, especially on oversight visits, when oversight visits take place, or when members go when they campaign for their political parties, it's inevitable that you interact with children. Children have views, very, very strong views. And it would be interesting to hear from children themselves in terms of the efforts and programs that has been put in place by social development, also basic education and other departments, how they view and what is their experience that they have. But we must do so in a very controlled environment.
Having said that, Chairperson, do we see this happening in the next 2 years after this fest within the Committee on Social Development, or it's something that committees need to ease it into the work of their committees?
It is something that must be incrementally brought into the work, not necessarily by sitting in a room, a committee room in Parliament and interacting with children. It will happen during oversight visits, where you have more direct access and where children are also in their own environment. But it will be issue-based and issue-driven so that we can incrementally start that interaction that is there. And there are specific committees, of course, both in the National Assembly and in the National Council of Provinces that focus on children.
All right, thank you, Chairperson. Within the identification now of areas that committees visit for public hearings, what criteria or what specifications do you look at for the committee to decide that we are going, for an example, to Pietermaritzburg, we are going to Kronstadt? What really is the criteria? Because sometimes we may find that when committees go out, they visit one and the same area to avoid leaving other sectors of the community being excluded on such critical processes of parliament. Can you share what criteria is actually being adhered to?
Well, there are different opportunities that exist for committees to overtake oversight visits. One can be in the form of the public hearings, and the committee staff usually work on certain proposals to say that these are the communities that the legislation that is being proposed will directly impact upon. Now, it's impossible in South Africa to go to all those different communities, but there's certain commonalities in place. So that is taken into account. It's also those communities whose voices are not always heard. They don't have access to television, for instance. They don't have access to the internet. They don't have access to social media, but they have views and the legislation will impact on them. So that is one criteria that has been identified. The second one, of course, is when topical issues unfold and you have certain type of community voices going up around something that they feel is not working like it's supposed to work, or that the government program that is supposed to be rolled out is not rolled out correctly or fast enough. That will be another criteria that will be considered. Also, you find some communities or certain interest groups in the country will send petitions to come to Parliament and to address certain things. We've now adopted the approach that it's better for the committees to go to those communities who have tabled those petitions. We do have, and we still allow it where possible, under the current COVID regulations, where some of the community members can even be invited to come to Parliament, and Parliament carry the transport and accommodation and other logistical costs for getting them to Cape Town. But for us, there's more value into the committee or a delegation from the committee going to specific locations to oversee that. Then you also find that certain government programs in a certain ministry or department gets a lot of attention, a lot of money is being spent on certain programs. Now, what is the best way for members of Parliament to find out? We've realized that we spend too much time for officials from the department to come, well-prepared slides. It's better for the committee members, the MPs, to go and visit such programs and to see for themselves whether the information that is being provided by the departmental staff is actually happening in practice. They must go and see the quality of the work. They must go and assess the impact that such programs have in improving the lives of our people.
Honorable Frolik, you just spoke of oversight and also the delegates from Parliament going and see if those programs are actually happening at the grassroots level. During the State of the Nation address, the President extended on the impact the state capture has had an effect on the country. The two reports that came out from the Commission on the state capture did not really paint a good picture for our country. Can you inform us as the viewers at home, what is the role now of the committees of Parliament considering what the report has actually showed us as the nation?
What it is, committees always have to do is to focus. Remember, the Auditor General brings certain reports out every year, and we have a very good relationship with the Office of the Auditor General, where certain flaws are pointed out. It's for committees to engage in that process and to physically go and see what is happening. In terms of the reports that will be coming, and the President has indicated that he will respond in detail by the end of June in terms of what government is going to do. The role of Parliament will be to oversee if government will be actually doing what they are saying they are going to do. The reports will come to Parliament, will be referred to Parliament, it will be processed here. And this afternoon, the Deputy Chairperson of the National Council of Provinces, the Honourable Sylvia Lucas, will deal with that matter specifically in the input that she will make in the State of the Nation address. So there's a very specific role for Parliament in terms of oversight, but also ensuring that what government is saying they are going to do, that it actually happens. But in very specific instances, you can see the impact that it had, especially in state-owned enterprises, is for committees seized in overseeing state-owned enterprises, Transnet and so forth, to reconsider the way that they have interacted and overseen those departments, because obviously there's a certain flaws in the approach of how oversight has been exercised.
And again, according to the Gauteng High Court, the president is expected to bring the commission's report, as we have alluded to, by the 30th of June 2022. And in terms of committees in this report, you've alluded to the fact that they will need to look at their oversight mechanisms. What is it that has made it look like it's flawed and it is not working? As the House chairpersons, what are some of the things that you think you need to change to ensure that the committees of the National Assembly are more effective in terms of their oversight?
I've earlier indicated that instead of just receiving glossary reports and PowerPoint presentations, it will become more prudent for committees to go and conduct on-site visits, physically going into departments. But more importantly is to scrutinize the reports that are given by different departments. We know the Office of the Auditor General look at the financials, but just imagine what can happen if we have all these different committees, both in the National Assembly and in the National Council of Provinces, who do that on an ongoing basis. We need the skill to check financial reporting and to see where those shortcomings are, but also to conduct proper oversight in terms of how government departments will reorganize themselves to also look at the flaws that has already been pointed out. Unfortunately, members of Parliament do not sit in tender committees. They don't sit where tenders are awarded. It's officials who are sitting there. So the issue of compliance then becomes important. How do they conduct themselves during the type of processes? Members of Parliament also don't deal with supply chain issues. It's officials who are dealing with it. So we must become more scientific and we must acquire the proper skills so that the committees are better empowered to pick up or to be alert about certain things as it unfolds. The problem with accounting at the end of a financial year is when the Auditor General comes with a report afterwards, is that once that report comes, the damage has been done already. So that is the area that we must focus on. What happens on a month-to-month basis, on a quarterly basis, because departments are expected to report monthly, quarterly, as well as at the end of the financial year. But more critically, there is a mechanism, and we must use that mechanism more effective. And chairpersons know they have access to that mechanism. And that's why we have a budget office that can assist the committees. We have the BRRR reports, the budget review and recommendation reports that also receive a lot of input from the departments, make assessments, but we must become more scientific as to the financial reporting part of it. We must be more proactive, especially if there's a history in a certain department that they get disclaimers, they don't report on time, there's questions continuously being asked, and then the role of the Public Service Commission in how they deal with officials who have been found wanting in either not doing what they are supposed to do or acting in an appropriate manner that simply goes undetected for years. So for the system to work, each and every arm of that system, each and every leg of the system must kick in, and it must work in unison so that you can achieve the desired outcome.
Going back to the budget office, is it in terms of human resources, is it staffed enough to assist the committees that we have? Because we've got a number of committees within Parliament, both the portfolio as well as the select committees.
There are a few vacancies that must be filled in the Parliamentary Budget Office. Also, you find that the Parliamentary Budget Office, in terms of the Act, the Money Bills and Related Matters Act of 2009, have a very specific function, and that is to assist the finance committees in both houses, as well as the appropriation committees, in dealing with the financial oversight, especially in terms of treasury. So their role is very, very specific. But what we found after the Budget Office started its operations, that there's increased need from committees for assistance from the PBO. The PBO do provide, where necessary, that assistance. But the PBO cannot replace the content advisor, researcher, the committee secretary, and the committee assistant and other staff who are there. We must prevent a situation and guard against a situation where the PBO becomes glorified researchers or content advisors. That is not their primary role. And where there are difficult issues in certain committees that cannot be attended to by the content advisor or the researcher, then the committee chairperson may request the assistance of the PBO. But I do not foresee a situation where the PBO will be staffed to such an extent where you have a representative or staff member from the PBO in each and every committee. That is not the intention of the Act.
Possible.
Yeah.
Yeah, there are just too many committees
Yeah.
as well. Chairperson, the committee has already started with some of its public hearings. Last year we ended with the gas bill, and we started, as we soon to start, also continuing with the gas bill. What other bills can the public expect within the next 3 months that will be coming for public hearings, in your knowledge?
Well, there's one specific bill, the Children Committee. And then there is also the matters, there's a few matters in front of the Justice and Constitutional Development Committee that they must also pay attention to. You can recall that we passed the GBV and femicide bills last year, 3 of those bills. It has been proclamated. But a crucial one is in front of the Environmental Affairs, Forestry and Fishery Committee. And that is the bill on climate change. That bill on climate change will be the litmus test whether South Africa will succeed in its just transition from our reliance on fossil fuels, specifically coal, to renewable energy sources, but also to ensure that we don't leave anybody behind. Those affected communities that have made a living for decades now, and where generations have worked on coal mines, must not be forgotten in what we're trying to achieve. If we do not succeed in doing it correctly, we will leave people behind. So the public hearings that will unfold around the climate change bill will be crucial in terms of putting in place the necessary procedures and structures, and Parliament will have to put its oversight structures also in place in ensuring that we do achieve a just transition. We cannot ignore climate change. It's part of our daily lives, and we don't have enough time. So it's important that we engage in that issue in a proactive manner instead of waiting. There's no such thing in the world as clean coal. It doesn't exist.
On that note, Honorable Frolick, thank you so much, sir, for your time. But now we are pressed for time, but thank you for making it. Viewers at home, that was Honorable Floric, who is responsible, who is the House Chairperson for Committees and Oversight for the National Assembly Portfolio Committees. We are now going to be going straight into our interview as well with our next guest. But at the moment, let's just allow Mr. Frolic to exit.
This book, our Constitution, protects our society and empowers us to govern. The protea leaves are us, the people, who freely elect our voices in Parliament. The drum calls the people of Parliament, through whom we govern together. And the sun is our country, healing our past, improving our lives, and energizing our potential. Together, our constitution, our people, our parliament, and our country are building our great South African nation. Parliament TV, channel 408 on DSTV.
After 2 days of grilling debates by members of parliament, President Cyril Ramaphosa will conclude the process of the debate on the State of the Nation address with his reply on 16 February 2022 at 2 p.m. Watch the reply by the President to the debate on the State of the Nation address live across Parliament's platforms on 16 February 2022 at 2 p.m. For more information on the State of the Nation address, visit our website at www.parliament.gov.za. Follow us on social media accounts at Parliament of RSA. Parliament, following up on our commitments to the people, making your future work better. Subsequent listening and paying attention of the President's commitments for 2022 financial year in the State of the Nation address, political parties will have an opportunity to debate, comment, and raise questions on matters addressed in the President's speech. This debate takes a form of a joint sitting of Parliament before the representatives of the National Assembly and the National Council of Provinces, and forms part of Parliament's key functions to monitor and oversee the actions of government. The debate on the State of the Nation address will be held over 2 days from 14 to 15 February 2022 at 2 p.m. Watch the debate live at 2 p.m. across Parliament's platforms. For more information on the debate on the State of the Nation address, visit our website at www.parliament.gov.za. Follow us on social media account at Parliament of RSA. Parliament, following up on our commitment to the people, making your future work better. For the first time since the dawn of democracy, the State of the Nation address held outside the buildings of Parliament due to the fire in the National Assembly. The plans for SONA had to be adjusted. We are now joined by Mr. Sithole, the project sponsor for the State of the Nation address. Good afternoon and welcome to Parliament TV, Mr. Sithole.
Good afternoon, ma'am.
Just share your experiences of the first State of the Nation address outside the precinct of Parliament.
It's quite a difficult feeling. It was unanticipated, and it threw up a number of things that we did not anticipate. You know, when we organize SONA, you know the National Assembly is there, you know how we must do it, you know the drill. In this instance, one way to find a venue, and once we found the venue, we had to make the venue suitable for SONA. So it was not quite an easy thing. It was difficult, we were basically dealing with an unknown. It threw us in a space where we had to find ourselves doing SONA from the grounds that we don't know, and we had to unlearn the usual way of doing SONA and actually embrace different ways of doing it.
So what were some of the successes before I go to the challenges?
Look, the fact that we had a good SONA, I've been listening to feedbacks from different people. I've been following some social media from different platforms. And the general feedback that we get is that we went well. And the fact that it was the first SONA ever to be held outside the precincts everybody feels that we've done our best in the circumstances.
It was quite a lot of involvement. There was a lot of people that were involved during the planning stages. That would be besides the staff of parliament. Would you share who are some of the human resources that you had to pull in to ensure that the plans are in place?
Normally, when SONA comes, we put a multidisciplinary teams that do different aspects. You have the police having to do their own planning. You have the army having to do their own planning. You have the communication people that have to do their own planning involving GCIS on one hand. In this particular SONA, we had to bring in Vodacom as an outsider, as a completely new player to be integral part in terms of providing certain services. So it was quite a different team that was there, beside, of course, your normal teams that will normally do that. And of course, things that had to happen were quite different. You had the city of Cape Town that had to play a particular role. You had hawkers that are trading across the city hall that you have to bring on board. So there's quite a diverse teams that we had to interact with for different roles for SONA to be successful.
Speaking of diversity, I'm not sure if you are allowed to share what was the role of the Hawks, because of course we know Hawks as being the investigating guys and the arresting guys. What was their role in this State of the Nation address?
Normally that will have been covered under the security cluster. How the security cluster will be composed will be their own configuration of how they are composed, but we will deal with them as a complete unit. We'll refer to it as a security cluster. In there, you'll have the Justice Department, for instance, sitting in that particular security cluster. So each unit of that security cluster will have their own role that they will have to play in that cluster. I will not be able to go into the details of what each unit will be doing in that cluster, but except to say that the security cluster as a whole have a particular responsibility.
Now, with the State of the Nation address planned way in advance, why is the State of the National address strategically placed in February?
It's quite an interesting thing. Remember that February also presents itself as a start of a new year. And of course, towards the end of the previous financial year. So February become very strategic because we're working towards the end of the financial year, but the beginning of a new financial year. So the State of the Nation is where the president basically accounts for what he has done in the previous financial year and what are the plans for the new financial year. That's why you have the State of the Nation where the president announced the program and is followed by the budget by the Minister of Finance. It's how that program is going to be financed. And that is a build up towards the beginning of the new financial year, but also the closing of the previous financial year. So February become your very active month for government.
Okay. You are a division manager for international relations and protocol. So how did you become the project sponsor for the State of the Nation address? And what were your responsibilities as the sponsor?
Basically, I'm a project leader. I lead the whole process. What normally happens is that the Secretary to Parliament become the project owner or the project sponsor, I could say, put it that way. Then I immediately come after the Secretary to Parliament. So I lead the whole process, the whole physical planning of SONA. So my role is to put together all the different role players, all the different activities, and basically present the State of the Nation as you saw it on the 10th. For me to coordinate is for me to make sure that all the streams that we've established can exist and can together pool for one objective of the day itself. And I think that we've been able to do that for some years, but of course this SONA was quite a different one.
Okay, it was also, I just want to confirm, it was also your first State of the Nation address, or you've been involved in the State of the Nation address before?
This is my 60th State of the Nation address, fifth State of the Nation address. 60th because in 1 year we had two.
Yes.
So it's my 60th State of the Nation address as a leader of SONA. So yes, but of course, as I say that this one, I thought the one that we had when there was a change of the president was the most difficult SONAs that I had, two SONAs back to back. But I think this was the more of a challenging SONA outside the premises, without your normal facilities that you normally have available, having to recalibrate all the facilities and all other instruments that you have to be able to deliver the SONA that you were able to deliver on the 10th.
Okay. For the past 6 years, you were involved in the State of the Nation address. You were comfortable with the venue being the National Assembly. Definitely, you must have known it back to front as to where you need to do this. But with this one, what were the challenges that you experienced?
Well, look, the first is the venue. We needed to come here, understand the venue. In the National Assembly, we know that the procession, for instance, for the judiciary will come from the Ncop. It will take this route. It will culminate. It will reach the National Assembly in this particular fashion. The procession of the speakers will be going this way. You ask us about the holding rooms. We'll tell you where they are located for each group of dignitaries that were invited. So here we have to first understand the venue. We have to understand how do we have a normal National Assembly environment, or rather parliamentary environment in this venue. How do we do all the things that needs to be done in this venue? Where will the ceremonial activities take place? How is the army going to travel? How are they going to be moving from one point to another? How are the street lining is going to happen? How are the horses going to move from? How are the motorbikes are going to? So all the things that we normally know, immediately they became unknowns. So we had to first answer those questions. We had to answer how then are we protecting this venue? The security arrangement of the venue, how are we going to do that security arrangement? How are we going to get the staff moving from Parliament to here? How are you going to get catering moving from Parliament to here? How are you going to get the guests moving from Parliament to here? How are you going to do all your search parks? How are you going to move members of Parliament from their villages to here? So those are the things that you'll normally do on SONA. But here, all those things were unknown. So we had to find answers for them.
The last question would be, what are Mr. Sitole's learned experiences from the SONA?
What is more important that one learns in SONA is that, and then this SONA has shown us that once you become comfortable in the manner that you do one thing over and over and over, you tend to be lax in terms of knowing, I know what is going to happen next. But this venue presented us to unlearn everything that we've learned. So we had to unlearn and learn at the same time, and be able to take what we've unlearned and what we've learned and implement it and make it a success. So we had to do all those three things in one shot. So what I've learned a lot is that do not organize SONA based on your previous experience. Use your previous experience to learn from it, but plan SONA every year from a fresh slate so that we are able to minimize your mistakes of the previous year, but we are able also to open yourself to learn new things. We've never worked with the city in the SONA. We had to learn how to work with the city. We've never worked with outsiders like your Vodacom and all those things. We had to learn to work with them. We had to accommodate them. We had to make sure that they are able to be to do what they needed to do. You have a venue that is a heritage site. You are not allowed to do certain things on this particular venue. You had to learn to do things that you have normally said, now let the cable go through this particular wall, or that just nail this particular flag in this particular wall. So we had to learn that we cannot do those things here. So we needed to know how then do you cable the place in such a way that you comply to the law, you comply to the city's regulations, and you don't violate any heritage site regulations that are there. So, so you learn that actually your yesterday's knowledge come handy to understand today, but take today to be able to plan better for tomorrow. So don't assume that what you have learned yesterday, it will be the same all the time. It's not the same.
Mr. Sithole, that is quite insightful, but just one last question. When you woke up to the news that the National Assembly has been gutted by fire, what went on in your mind at that point?
In fact, it was a difficult thing. The first thing, I could not believe that the news were correct. When I saw it on TV, I said, no, man, it can't be. So I had to phone to get confirmation that it's actually true. Because the first thing was, it's not possible. It cannot happen. Why is this news reporting that the National Assembly Parliament is on fire? It's not possible. So I had to phone the Secretary to Parliament to say, man, I'm seeing this thing on the news. What is the situation? And unfortunately, he confirmed that it's true. So immediately he ordered us to report for Cape Town, and I was on my way to Cape Town. I think I arrived here on the 3rd or on the early hours of the 4th in the morning, and all senior managers were then called in to attend to the situation. But of course, it was unbelievable until I had to see it myself to say, this has happened. And for me, it's quite a conflicting feeling. I'm a manager of Parliament, but I've been a member of that house in the previous life. So you have a feeling of affinity to the house. You have been a member for 10 years in that house. I've been in Parliament now for almost 6 years in the administration. You bring all that feeling together. It's quite a hateful situation. Whoever did it, whatever reason, it does not know the impact of that action in our lives.
We would like to end it there, Mr. Sithole, but sir, thank you so much for your time. Viewers at home, this is Mr. Sithole, who's going to just remain with us for now. The project mentor for the sponsor for the State of the Nation address. We are still bidding up to the State of the Nation address debate 2022. We will be right back. Please stay tuned. Subsequent listening and paying attention of the President's commitments for 2022 financial year in the State of the Nation address, political parties will have an opportunity to debate, comment, and raise questions on matters addressed in the President's speech. This debate takes a form of a joint sitting of Parliament before the representatives of the National Assembly and the National Council of Provinces, and forms part of Parliament's key functions to monitor and oversee the actions of government. The debate on the State of the Nation address will be held over 2 days from 14 to 15 February 2022 at 2 p.m. Watch the debate live at 2 p.m. across Parliament's platforms. For more information on the debate on the State of the Nation address, visit our website at www.parliament.gov.za. Follow us on social media account at Parliament of RSA. Parliament, following up on our commitment to the people, making your future work better.
South Africa, COVID-19 is still with us. South Africa and the world continue to experience infections and deaths, with many families losing their loved ones and in some instances, their livelihoods through this pandemic. While the government has opened various sectors of the economy to arrest the collapse of the economy and is rolling out the robust national vaccination program, the importance of remaining vigilant and never letting our guard down cannot be overemphasized. We must all remain steadfast in strictly observing all regulations and health protocols. Once the guard is lowered and we ignore these important life-saving protocols and regulations, our rate of infections will skyrocket. Lives and livelihoods will be destroyed, and our socio-economic rebuilding and restoration program will suffer immensely. Let's work together. Let's hold hands and unite even better than before against this invisible enemy. As united people of this nation, let's work together. Let's hold hands and unite even better than before against this invisible enemy. As united people of this nation, we have overcome most vicious and destructive adversaries before. Working together, we can overcome these too. Let's avoid huge gatherings where we can, wear our masks, wash hands all the time, and maintain social distancing. Parliament, following up on our commitments to the people, making your future work better.
Welcome back. You're still watching a build-up show brought to you by Parliament TV on DSTV channel 408. You have a few minutes before we take you live to the chamber in the Cape Town City Hall, where the debate is scheduled to take place at 2 o'clock. The bells are ringing. That can only be an indication that members are getting seated, and the chamber will begin, the debate will begin anytime from now.
Absolutely, Thembinkosi, you're right. Members are literally making their way into the chamber right now as we speak. We can hear the bells ringing. Members are taking their seats. And of course, those who will be participating in the debate are lining up so that they can be able to come in according to the speakers list, which has already been put in place, which will guide the sequence of the members based on all the parties that are represented in Parliament. Also, another important point to mention is the fact that this is a clear demonstration or manifestation or giving effect to what our multi-party democracy is all about. It is not just about the voice of one political party. This multi-party democracy of ours enables parties that are represented, all parties represented, to also participate in the debate and also be able to test the ideas that have been presented by the president and also make counter proposals as well to enhance and to also make sure that government is able to implement its priorities as set out by the president.
Indeed, Sibo, I think that is what makes our constitutional democracy stand out in terms of holding even the president accountable with his cabinet in terms of what is it that they've put together for the State of the Nation address each year. So the 2 days would indeed intensify and even bring some perspective into some of the points that were alluded to during the State of the Nation address, giving the president enough time to actually digest what he had actually delivered to the nation. But also, South Africans need to know that the president always takes his position to also listen to the debates and to the questions, to the comments that are posed to him or that are stated to him by the nation representatives in the House.
And of course, on Wednesday, after he has listened to the 2 days of debate of all the opinions and the varied perspectives that are shared by all 14 political parties, the president will be responding to all of the issues that are being raised. Obviously, we know that what set the tone is his 2022 State of the Nation address, which is now being unpacked by parties based on what their constituencies have in mind, based on their own party political perspectives, and then the president will be responding on Wednesday. Thembinkosi.
Sibulelo unyanisile namhlanje njengoba i-members zizabe zibhizi zidebata isi-State of the Nation address besilashwe ngumongameli kule veki pheleyo. Uzobe ehleli naye pha, uzobe ethethe isithi yakhe, listening attentively and making notes so that he is also able to respond on Wednesday, as you rightfully put it. You know, we can expect
very robust debate.
Robust debate to happen today, especially after we received some reactions from the members of parliament, from the reactions that we received from members of parliament on Thursday after the State of the Nation address. There were, like, you know, conflicting views, others expressing
an appreciation.
Yes, the appreciation of the issues that have been outlined by the president, others obviously criticizing what the president has outlined. But we wait to hear what is going to happen this afternoon, but can viewers at home expect a very robust debate and obviously quite a few number of points of orders.
We can definitely expect this point of orders.
Especially
and
on
those
the point as
interruptions
well
coming
that
up.
you said that the government is not responsible to create jobs, but the businesses must create jobs.
Indeed, so when we also just reflect on what transformative constitutionalism is within the context of Parliament's role, this really is about making sure that we put in place systems to speak, to express views and ideas. And we cross over to the live debate of the State of the Nation address.
There will be now an opportunity for silent prayer or meditation. Please be seated. Secretary, order. Order. The Secretary will read the order of the day.
Debate on the President's State of the Nation address.
Honorable members and guests, in the interest of safety for all present in the chamber, we request that you please keep